But the family is okay, and yours as well.
Amazing.
I know. Okay, so basically, this interview, want to say, is on OKFM and other radio stations around, and that's OKFM and other radio stations around are also relaying this interview. And of course, I'm here as well to grill Mrs. Simon Freeman. I'm here along with Trojan. Trojan, how you doing?
Hello once again. So, yes, by God's
When
grace,
last week, yeah.
I think it was last week,
Last
Monday.
week. Oh, okay, with Sir Joseph.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's becoming regular now.
On Monday morning.
On the Monday morning. Okay, so we have Mrs. Simon Freeman, who's vying for the country's highest seat. Mr. Freeman, again, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. George, and to say thank you and good morning to those in Radio Land. We are on multiple radio stations, OKFM, Prime, True FM, Ablija Radio in Grand Bassa, Joy Africa, and a few other radio stations. So
Wow.
this is covered along with ELBC's network.
That goes around the entire country.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you are speaking to the entire country and people outside of Liberia as well.
Well, hopefully. And I hope that we will have an engaging conversation, considering that there is this, and I heard you talking about there is this assumption that ELBC does not give audience to opposition politicians. And I'm happy that I'm here, and I'm hoping that we will not have any technical glitches.
No, let's get it past. But that would not happen, I assure you.
And I'm hoping that we can, not just myself, but other musician politicians that are interested in coming on the state radio, since it's state funded by our taxes. I pay a lot of taxes in this country, and I think we all need to have access to it to be able to plead our case to the people of Liberia to say why we want to be president and why some other persons shouldn't be president, and we state the facts. When these elections are over, we are all Liberians. I will still speak with Mr. George. I will speak with whoever the other actors and contestants are. In the end, the reason why each of us is vying for the presidency is because we think we have a better understanding of how the country should be run versus the way it's currently run.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, SORBOR, there was something he said, and I want to piggyback on and then get the ball rolling. He said why he's here to talk about why he wants to be president and why others he thinks others should not be president of Liberia. So I wanted to start from there and ask him, why do you want to be president of Liberia? Why? Excellent. To start with, let's look at what's the role of the president of Liberia. The president of Liberia role is to divide the resources of the country adequately, and in the process of dividing those resources, create jobs. A couple of years ago, as far back as 2012, 2014, Liberia needed to create 50,000 jobs per year. Our population have since grown. The workforce is much bigger, so I assume, and I stand to be corrected, it may probably have raised into 60,000 per year. Clearly, so the role of the president is to make sure that it provides job, ensure that education is good, ensure that health is good, ensure that the country is competitive, ensures that there is a significant job that leads to massive GDP growth. That's the role of the presidency. Why do I think I qualify to fill that role? I'm already doing business, starting from poverty, from nowhere, starting from the gutters of life. I didn't inherit any wealth. Those who know me know that it's been a long struggle. I've built businesses in my own country, built businesses in other countries. I've provided lots of employment. I'm one of the Liberians that have consistency in the business workspace. And I come to the table with that capacity to create jobs, to be technical in my analysis. So why then do I want to be president with that capacity? Because I have a clear understanding of Liberia's challenges. Liberia doesn't have a money problem. Liberia has a management problem. I want to come to the works. I want to come to the office of the presidency to transform our country. Firstly, to look at our economy that is heavily challenged. Over the last couple of years, and even if you look at all of the World Bank and IMF data on Liberia, you look at even our Liberian government documentation, in the last 40 to 100 years, we've always looked at mining. In the beginning, it was, you remember in Cape Martin, they had the LMC, then they had the bomb mining company, then there was Lamco, and all of those things did not create the wealth that we wanted. Then we ventured into gold. Last year, our GDP growth was heavily driven by mining prices. So we've grown by about 300 and something million, because we're 3.3 now, we're about 4 million. I think 4 million, 4.1 million billion, in GDP. It was grown by mining. I think mining, we did iron ore about 349 million. Gold was about 342 million thereabout. And how many jobs were created in the mining sector? Not much. That's why I'm quite bent on agriculture. I want to industrialize this country. It's a very big word, but it means I want to build the factories in this country. And by so doing, I will use the private sector to create the jobs that we do not have. I want to add value in terms of providing support to farmers. I also want to invest in education. The current trend of education is really bad, and as we go on, we'll break these things down.
Yes, because we need a strategy you'll be using.
Right,
yes.
Right. I also want to transform the issue of health. But significantly, I want to look at our educational sector and transform it massively, because if we must compete as a nation, we have to create the necessary skills that our people need to be competitive locally and internationally. So these are many of the reasons why I want to be president of Liberia, and why I think I qualify in the first place as compared to some of my compatriots. The current president,
now you're talking about why shouldn't others be?
Right. So the current president, the economy is in current free fall. You remember, just I think last year or 2 years ago, we talked about changing the money supply, right? So we're supposed to introduce a new currency, and that new currency hopefully would have replaced the total stock of currencies. Since the introduction of the new currency, the rate moved now upwards by, I think, about 15 or 20% from $150. 150 Liberian dollars to $1 US now is about 190, and God knows wherever, depends on if you can get the dollar. The economy is really in free fall. There are lots of challenges on multiple fronts. That's why we think Weah is not the guy for the presidency. We don't even think Brecker is the guy for the presidency. You know, one of the problems I have with Brecker, clearly, look, he worked on Ellen. You look at it. I looked at it last night. I went over the budget from 2006, when Ellen became president, Brecker was vice president, to 2017 when he was vice president. Brecker budget ranged from 1.8 million all the way to $2.4 million per annum. And at that same time, support to fire service was nominal. Support to the drug enforcement agency was nominal. Brecker consumed almost $30 million over a 12 years period, and he blames Ellen for all of the problem, and so we think the frustration of our people, they must not be so frustrated where we are, even though we are Moscow, that they want to jump to Brecker, when people like us are available to transform this country and give it a better.
You didn't reference to Cummings.
Because in every respect, I don't think I should. I think I should look at. I think I should look at. I'm clearly looking at the people that are clearly have a clear shot in terms of contention.
And you
People
think
that
Cummings,
have circulation.
and you think Cummings is not that competitive, or he's not a competitor?
Hopefully, but in every respect, if we were to look at Cummings, he comes from the private sector. He's a guy who, like myself, grew up in the private sector, and I think in many respects, Liberia needs somebody that have a private sector understanding and can bring new thinking into the governance process. Too often you hear people say, oh, this man has not worked in government, he doesn't understand government. But look, there is nothing to learn in Liberia. The entire governance process in Liberia has been a failed arrangement. Do you want me to go and work in a government to learn how to run Ministry of Transport, or to learn how to print driver's license, or to learn how to print license?
So then why were you not specific about Cummings? Rather, you were specific about the ambassador. Ambassador
That's what I'm saying. I give you my reason, because clearly it doesn't appear to me, and my information may be wrong, that he has a clear shot as these other two persons that seem to be neck to neck. So in every respect, you want to be able to get the people to understand, yes, we need change in Liberia, but that change must not be driven by desperation, and we must focus on what we need versus what we have.
So in other words, you are saying that Cummings is desperate for the presidency?
No, I didn't say that, and I will hope that you don't.
No, just
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I will hope that you don't. I'm responsible for what I see and not what you hear. but having said that, I will say Cummings comes from the private sector, and same as myself, I think people like us seem to have a clear understanding of workings and workability that can be brought to the table as compared to a Boyka or a Weir. Clearly, Weir himself does not understand what's even happening around him. Boyka, as a person, have worked in government consistently and has nothing to show. And I think the change mantra that is being elevated must be elevated to people that have clear understanding of how to work and run things versus based on these emotions that
let me take you to the first question I intended to ask before my colleague or Trojan came in.
Right.
You are vying for the presidency, and in fact, labeled yourself as the savior of
the Redeemer.
The savior.
As I have been called.
Now, you have a couple of new first-time voters who may not know who Senior FREEMAN is, and it's quite necessary to explain to them now as to who Senior FREEMAN is, what are the politicians, where did he come from, whether he's married, all of that. Let's get to know a bit about you.
Oh, good. So Senior FREEMAN comes from Grand Bassa County. I speak Bassa very well. If you could speak Bassa, we could start that whole Rick Monroe. And so I want him to go by.
Okay, that's good. Then I can start.
I grew up in Bassa. My father and my mother separated when I was just 1 month old, so it was difficult. My mother had to struggle with me, and we live in Buchanan. So my mother saw me up to 9th grade. After 9th grade, I dropped out of school for a year, and then I was assisted by my foster grandmother, who then sent me into the LTR in Lofa County. So I went to school. I went to boarding school in Salaye, Lofa. From there, I sat down for about a few years and then went to school abroad, where I did bachelor's and master's in business administration, international business, and economics. And then I started business, and my business route was not as people think it is. If you went to the slaughterhouse or you even went to Benson Street, you ask those meat sellers, they all know me. I used to import cows, live cows, from Tengedela in Cote d'Ivoire. I used to go to Bobo Dioulasso in Burkina Faso. Mali and all that, bring in live cows to Liberia. But before then, I used to hawk on the streets of Monrovia selling, those days we used to have the wheeler market. You put the rope on your neck. It used to be that like a small box leg. So I used to sell and I started to hustle around. Then I went on to live cows. Then I started importing used cars on Benson Street, where Tiger Bladen used to be. The late Florence D. Rare place in the back that used to sell used vehicles. And I transitioned from there. I started selling computers. I had a store on Carey Street. And then from there, I went on to take up DSTV. And then from there, I went on to start doing sugar in Nigeria. And then I also now do real estate, clay, and retail in Ghana currently, and now we are also expanded to other countries. So that's Simeon Freeman for you.
Married?
I'm married. I've got 3 children. They're all out of the country.
Let's get to hear from you, Mrs. Freeman. What is your attachment with this whole DSTV?
When you say my attachment, it's a lot of
you own the institution or the business, or you are selling for somebody?
Well, no, I all of the businesses that I own, whether it's the previous water factory that we now converted into suffering, that factory used to have 5,000 bottles an hour. We've now stepped it up to 25,000 bottles an hour. It's going to do Liberia's first sparkling water. It's going to do soft drink. It's going to do mineral water. All that is owned personally. So across Africa, all these businesses are owned by myself.
By you.
Yeah.
Now, so you...
And so also on the DSTV front, we're also introducing movie production where we want to elevate Liberian movies. And we want to give it a permanent platform on multiple networks, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Showmax, whether it's DSTV. And we're also setting up something called LIB Max. It's going to be a terrestrial rebroadcast that will cover the country. And we may probably let it go for anywhere between $5 to $6 a month, where we're going to have multiple Liberian channels, and we're investing up to $4 million in Liberian movies, which is the first step in conjunction with multiple interests and multiple partners that will come in, because $4 million is small, it may sound big, but that budget probably will go up to $75 million that we want to invest in Liberian movies.
That's something you're saying that probably entertainers now are new and we get more details of, especially since they've been crying that our industry here has not been supported and all of that.
True. But it's true. I mean, from the last time I spoke to them, it costs about $1,500 to produce a Liberian movie, which is really cheap. How much do you pay the actors? So a lot of the actors are underpaid. Some of them sometimes $2,500. We intend to increase that volume. First thing, we're trying to bring in the right machinery, the right skills, the right capacity. And we may have some glitches along the way, but we're hoping over a 6 months to a year period, Liberian movie will mature. But the whole goal is to have a lot more of that. So from a personal perspective, those are the things I'm doing. I'm also trying to set up a dedicated sports channel on DSTV for Liberian football. That will also help scouts recruiting Liberian footballers from Liberia to watch that channel. We've done it for Ethiopia, and you have lots of Ethiopian players playing in South Africa and other parts of Africa, people that are willing to spend more money. And we think that could also help create income for the multiple talents in the area of football that we have.
Now,
so from a private sector perspective, those are things we are doing to help the country.
I'm really impressed, about your beginning, your humble beginning, especially from Willow Market. You've rose now to being a very,
and I want Mr. SORBOR George to make me the next president of Liberia. Do I have your vote?
I'm impressed of your humble beginning. But your critics will ask, and let me ask this question: why can't you focus? You've started from Widow Market, like I said, again, and you are now want to be, influential, entrepreneur around the country, the continent. Why can't you just focus on your business activity than wanting to, venture into politics?
Mr. George, that's the fun. And look, I wish I could just put you on my back for asking that question. You see, that's the fundamental mistake we make. The people who have shown capacity, who have the expertise to govern the country, what do? We say, oh, just focus on frying your plenty because you know how to fry plenty. You focus on making potato green because you know potato green. Then we take the country and we give it to the person that knows nothing about doing anything. And then what happened? The country tears down. The country doesn't prosper. Today, what do we have? Thousands and thousands and thousands of unemployed young people. When we go into the educational statistics here, you will see. Let me open it up and it will shock you. 922,000 people enter primary schools. Do you know how many get out? Only 3%. This is a 2018 report. Only 3% come out of high school. These are critical. Look at how the economy have moved from 150, instead of taking the rate down to 100, Liberian dollar, the biggest bill you had before was 50, it went to 100. Now we got 1,000 bill. The more you print more of the bigger denomination like you saw in Sierra Leone, it means the value of the money is beginning to water down. So coins that used to be 1 cent, 2 cent, now coins are $5 and $10. The economy is hurting. People who know it, people who have transformed their own lives, people who have managed their own prosperity properly, give them the country and it will change things around. Then you say, oh, no. Academia. No, you are good accountant.
No, the reason why I asked the question, Mr. Freeman, the reason why I asked the question,
go ahead.
You come from a very humble beginning, and you did extremely well. Like I said, I'm impressed of your beginning. Now you've reached a point where you are now well known in the continent as one of the influential and one of the prospering entrepreneur around. The reason why I asked the question, you may not get that sort of progress when you maybe enter politics, because you have a couple of individuals around you who may not give you the sort of advice that you needed or the sort of support, but staying in your business arena, you are progressing well. What do you mean there?
Mr. Joe, your question is full of a lot of assumptions.
Okay.
You may not be known in the country. You may not be this. All those myths are untrue. When I went to Basel, people...
No, I didn't say in the country. I didn't say in the country.
You said the people around me may not give me the right advice.
When you enter the presidency,
wait a minute. When I go places, I see the massive support. I see people are excited. I see people want change. I see people are surprised at the things that I see. I see people say, okay, this man wants to drive the country in a whole new direction. I want to build a Liberia in which Mr. SORBOR George can get up from here and say, look, there are multiple nice resorts in Maryland County. I will get in my car, put gas in there, and drive there with my family. Like a man drives from Virginia to New Jersey in America. That's the Liberia I want to be. I want to build a Liberia in which we don't have 1.6 million people of the 5.6 million people of, I don't know, 5.6 or 5.2 million people in Monrovia. That's 30% of our population right here in Monrovia. I want to create a Liberia in which I can invest in tourism. I can invest in industrialization. I can make sure that if I come from Nima, I can still stay in Nima. I can still eat ice cream. I can still go to a nice hotel. I can still do all of the affluent life that Monrovia has to offer. I can produce that because those places are the happy. I want to ensure that when a person graduates from university in Liberia, he's reading a current year book, not he's being given a pamphlet and being taught by a bachelor's degree.
Good ideas, Mr. Freeman, good ideas. Why can't you begin with the national legislature?
You see, now Mr. SORBOR George wants to be a national prescription.
No, I'm just asking. Why can't you start from the national legislature? They want to start with the president.
Wait a minute. Why can I?
You got good ideas.
Wait a minute. It's Mr. SORBOR George. So, Mr. SORBOR George, why can you go leave this microphone and go and do Lone Star money, something
money on the different. You are good. That money doesn't hold you.
So wait.
Ideas, Mr. Freeman. You got a couple of good ideas. You want to do this, you want to do that. I'm asking, why can't you begin from the national legislature as a representative or as a senator.
Mr. George.
Senator SIMEON FREEMAN. That was kind of person.
Mr. George. You see, when you become a senator, as an individual senator, you one of 30. When you become president, you have executive power. The budget is the president's budget. The budget is not the senator's budget. It's for the president. The president of Liberia appoints the minister of finance, the revenue head, and so in that way he collects revenue.
Okay.
He can influence outcome. If it is an issue of just being paid, then I'm okay where I am. If it is an issue of sitting in a position where I want to influence outcome, listen, I come from poverty. I want to bring all of that understanding of my personal transformation. I remember when I was moving into Nigeria or to Ghana, people say, oh, as a Liberian, you can't make it. Today, in fact, I go further. I'm even opening an industrial park in Shire Hills in Ghana, just about 30 minutes outside Tema. I'm on the verge of getting all of the documentation to ensure that the park become optional as a Liberian operating in a different country. So all of that expertise, I want to bring it to Liberia's presidency, transform the environment so that Mr. SORBOR George can sit down with his son. Even though he's sitting here as a tough journalist, asking all his questions, he will say to his son, you know, I supported SIMEON FREEMAN and I'm proud I did that, because that decision enabled a president that for the first time understood the dynamics. I will give you something before I leave from here, just before you come in, sir. Do you know Liberia's budget in 1946 was 2.2 million? By 1969, Liberia's budget was by 1966, Liberia's budget was 27 million. Do you know, as the budget increased, there was an increment in collection, there was also an expansion in our bureaucracy.
Okay.
The size of our government today just doesn't add up and doesn't make sense. And that's why we are hurting ourselves. So SIMEON FREEMAN come to the table with all of this understanding, and he wants to transform our country. Go ahead, sir.
All right, so you've said all of the nice things, and a lot of people will say it is easier said than done. So let's go into the nitty-gritty of telling us how some of these things will be carried out. Let's start off, for example, from the educational sector, which you think is deplorable, and as president of Liberia, you think you can fix. So let's start. How do you intend to turn things around if you are elected as president of Liberia from the educational sector?
Good. So I want you to look at this while I discuss it, so that I'm not speaking because I'm opening this sheet. You can see, he may not be able to see it, but I'm sure you can see it. You can see Liberia, regional, sub-regional income group. This is a report. So I want to open this one so you can see here. So this is, you can see it? Okay. So you can see here, I want to start with education. So you can see here, the total, let me read what's here. In Liberia, the academic year begins in September and ends in June, and the official primary school entrance age is 6. The system is structured so that the primary school cycle lasts 6 years, lower secondary lasts 3 years, and upper secondary lasts 3 years. So that's from 7 to, lower secondary is 7 to 9, upper is 10 to 12. Good. Liberia has a total of 922,000 pupils enrolled in primary and secondary education. Of this number, about 694,000, 75% are enrolled in primary. Right, that's the highest number. Primary is from ABC up to 6th grade. Then you have, which is shown in the different figures. Then let me show you something here. So you see, these are the numbers here. You see here, 694,000. Let me just make this big. That's primary, this big blue area. Then lower secondary is 143,000. Upper secondary is 85,000. You notice there's a declining number. Let's look at who makes it out. Out of this entire number that enters school, incomplete of that number, 42%. Secondary incomplete. You see here? Post-secondary, who makes it out of high school? Only 3%.
So it's a problem. So how do you intend to fix it?
That's the problem. The current approach.
What year
Yes,
It's a 2018 report.
But 2018 to 2023, have we not made some improvement?
There are no new reports.
Mr. Freeman, you are just looking at your statistics, and I want to, because
he was asking me to break down. He was asking me. I mean, I haven't done all his question. I needed to build the basis first on the educational transformation aspect of.
Yes, I agree, but I want you to be very clear with the problem you've determined, with the problem that you found out from with the education sector. What is the problem? Because I saw you trying to go through your statistics. What is the problem you found out? Yeah,
Mr. George, you didn't listen to what I said. That's why I said I'm showing you this because instead of being a typical politician, that's why you don't need a
no, the old man down there. Akami. The old lady in maybe in Cape Mount, in the Grand Crew in Maryland, whose votes that you really craving for. May not understand all your statistics. So tell them actually this is the problem.
Mr. George.
Yeah, I'm saying.
So you either want me to do it the way you want.
No, I'm not saying the way I want. But the way the people understand you.
Wait a minute. You don't know how to understand me because you're not a spokesman for them. He asks a question and I'm building the basis first.
Go right ahead. Everything that the people understand that we go with all the statistics and numbers.
Are you confessing that you're not going to vote for me because you want me to?
No, we're not discussing about voting.
Anyway, having said that, you have these stats, right, that shows primary incomplete, meaning people that enter high, from grades A, B, C to 6th grade, 37% incomplete, as you can see here. Meaning you have 37% dropout out of the thing. Those that enter secondary school, of that number, 42% of our people drop out of secondary school. Then out of the entire 922,000 that were admitted into school or went to the school, the entire number, only 3%, that's probably about 25,000 or 30,000 people that graduated from high school throughout the country. This is nationwide. What does this tell us in terms of the problem of education in our country? It tells us that the current solution that is being provided, WAEC fee, a free education, are not the solution and they will not help us. If you look at this report, it also shows you that about 36% of our teachers in high school are high school dropout. They don't have capacity. And we don't even have, I think about 24% also don't have capacity at the tertiary level, meaning the university level. When you look at these, it means that some of the things we're supposed to be done. So my approach to education, firstly, will be, one, I want to set up private. So the whole strategy from the MPC is privately run or publicly funded. How are we going to do privately run or publicly funded? Okay. How are we going to do that? We're going to take Mr. SORBOR George and give him.
You're being very specific today.
Yes, because you are our host.
Okay.
We're going to take Mr. SORBOR George, give him the public school systems, right? All of the government schools in Birmingham, in Cape Mount, in Bapolo. Give it to Mr. George.
As a private individual?
Yes.
Okay.
We lease it to him because these are government assets. So we lease it to Mr. George for, say, 10 years, for 20 years, or 25 years. We lock it down. Now, what do we do next? We introduce a biometrics infrastructure so that we can determine the number of students in school. We don't want Mr. George to come to us and say, oh, I've got 10,000 students in primary when he actually has 5,000 students. So with a biometric infrastructure, which will be done through mobile, we will be able to know the actual number of students, no cheating anybody. Then the next thing we determine, and we'll do that for all of Liberia, are just taking those three countries.
All the public schools.
All the public schools across the country, but we'll do it regionally. Then what do? We then sit down with all of these private institutions and we agree on the value of the tuition. So we say, okay, if we agree from ABC to 6th grade will be $100 a year, then that's the fee. We agree based on what the operating cost will be. Then we will issue standards
We want every child to have a computer. We want electronic bowl. We want every child to have a seat. We want, we probably start with 40 students per class and scale it down, because you can't be so drastic in the beginning. Right now, you have up to 100 and something students per class. When we've done that, how do we then pay those private schools, privately run schools? Now they have money. Now they have, now they have standards. Now they have the asset. Now we need to fund them. The first thing is they need to be capacitated. We can't say, oh, we're going to give you, you're going to collect tuition and then do it gradually, right? So that's where you have the public fund. All of government money is at the central bank. We're going to take some of that money. If we target the first 50 million, take that money and send it to the commercial banks. And the commercial banks will be giving instruction with direct lending to those institutions. So now those institutions have borrowed money, not from the government, but from the commercial bank, meeting commercial bank loan terms. The government only give specific instruction for on-roll lending to create the capacities we need at those schools. Then government, having this database, will pay through direct injection for the tuition of people who go to public school. We're not going to pay tuition for private school. Private school is a choice, but you go to public school, our job would be to make sure we fund that. Now, how do we then collect that money? We collect it from two sources. The first source would be we introduce a probably 1% tax or 0.1% tax across salaries, so that that tax, which would be called National Education Tax Net, would then fund all of those private schools. And then from the national envelope, right, the general fund will also be able to fund those. So now what problem have we solved? We've solved multiple problems. The old system is Minister of Education, County Education Officer, District Education Officer.
You're going to be getting rid of all of those.
You get one, we'll clear that.
No County Education Officer.
That's there. SIMEON FREEMAN is President, County Education Officer. We repurpose you and give you a new job. We consume you differently. We retrain you. So what are we going to be solving? We're going to be solving the issue of where you give 500 chairs to Grand Bassa County. It gets to the deputy minister responsible for that. Before he takes his own, it gets to the county education officer, he takes his own district. Then when you go to the actual beneficiaries, you don't see the chairs. When you go to school, most of these schools don't even have duster to clean the bowl. Many schools across Africa are not even using that Olin Town bowl when we were in school, where you're cleaning dust because it's not even healthy. All those things will clear it completely. This is how we fund education and fund it in a totally different way.
All right, so that's
very revolutionary. You see, it comes from the private sector. It comes from a whole new approach. As compared to. Go ahead.
It sounds revolutionary indeed. So let's go to the economy. You are an economist, and of course, we've been talking about how, of course, the economy is in a free fall.
Right.
You're talking about the Liberian dollar and the US dollar.
Right.
How we're losing it with the printing of more higher currencies. So how do you intend to turn things around in this sector?
Immediately.
Immediately.
As president of Liberia, look, the first thing I would do, I would squeeze expenses. Right? And ERBC is our host. Mr. SORBOR George will find you a new job. But look, as president, ERBC will be sold to the private sector. Mutual information will not exist. Look, the truth is, we can operate and exist with all of the 120 public institutions. A small country like Liberia, when you want to go to Dubai today, bossman, you sit from right here and Dubai gives you a visa. We have an ambassador in Sierra Leone, free money. We have an ambassador in Guinea, free money. Ambassador in Cote d'Ivoire. There is a new terminology called consulate. We don't need an ambassador there. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, $20 million US. Office of the President, $5 million US. EPS that provide protection only for the president, $10 million. The judiciary gets 17 million. The entire judiciary gets 17 million. As president, my job is to make the people's money, the Liberian people money, work for them. So what do I want to do? Even ALP, RSC, those things wouldn't exist because those things
Look, they will be privately run. Why do you need a government to run tanks? Tanks? You need a government to run it for a president.
You want to shut down the entire
I don't want to shut it down.
And privatize every sector of the government.
See, you see, Mr. George, you see, that's Liberia's challenge. The way you know, that's why when people say, oh, the man working government, I'm like, what's there to learn? Because look, bossman, let me face it, your phone that you're using. Imagine Celcom or Lone Star say, come, then we'll be putting data on your phone and stuff like that. Or they gave you the thing, you can use it, and then you can pay when you, do you know how much liabilities they will have? When your unit finished, it finished, right? You got to reload. I was coming, my data ran, or I had to reload just now. When you pay your DSTV bill is finished, we cut you off. We don't even have to. When people say, oh, you cut me off, I'm like, I don't even know, because the system does that. It's automated. We are talking now on the air. Your system is such that you have repeaters that's sending it around the station. I want to leverage a lot of technology. So the government of Liberia has no business running tank farm. There are lots of capable Liberian businesses that can run that tank farm. All of the things that happen there wouldn't happen. So the things that government's supposed to be involved in, we will do it. Several years ago, government thought it needed to be doing telecom, and telecom never worked with us. What do? We privatize it. Today, the telecom sector is the largest tax-paying sector. LPRC then will pay no taxes to us. LEC will pay no taxes to us, because we have nothing to do with whether they survive or not. We will create the structure and support that. Now, how am I going to work with the education? Work with that. That money, if you work for government, you work for those institutions, we're not going to put you down. We're going to take that money and pay you over the next 24 months until we transition you to one of these industrial jobs. Then we will take the money saved from rent, from financial, from recurrent costs and all those costs. We're going to take that money, and that's the money we'll be loaning to these institutions to enable them. So you see, we would have reduced our expense massively. Our recurrent expenditure, I was just looking at the budget before I came, is quite high. Our wage bill right now stands, they divided it into two. They got one, they divided into social benefit and the other one, but you put the two of them together, it's about 305 million US out of our collection. So these things are critical. No, I'm building the case first. I'm building the case. So, Ms. George, I have to give you the diagnosis of the problem. I know you're in a hurry. Right now, the economy is in free fall. What are we doing? Do you know how much we spent to print the Liberian dollar? By 2015, we were spending 1.4 million US dollar to print 1 billion Liberian dollars. So let me give you a calculation for the total current $45 billion that have been printed. Let me just use that quickly on my calculator. I like to set the basis before we go forward so that you understand where we're coming from and why we need that approach. So $45 billion divided by $1 billion, which means the total SEC, 1, 2, 3, that's about 45 tons using the old rate of 1.4 million. That's about 63 million US dollar. And the quality of our currency doesn't even compare. That's why I'm listing these things, because I want to give you step by step. When Senior FREEMAN become president, the first thing I'm going to do, have a meeting along with my LRA boss, Minister of Finance. We have a meeting with the telecommunications infrastructure. You know what we drive, and the central bank. You know what we're driving towards? Mobile money. We want to put, I want to put about $20 to $30 million in the mobile sector, so that every market woman, everybody already that has a phone, if you don't have a phone, we put a phone in your hand, we will make sure we market the technology. So instead of spending $63 million for our own currency that goes by in 6 months, we can spend that money so that we become like Kenya, where nobody is using cash in Kenya. People using M-Pesa to pay. So what we will then do, we will now move. The first drive we want to do, the government of Liberia has about 250 taxes, different taxes that people pay. Every tax paid to government will not be through the banking system, it will be through Momo. Now we'll be encouraging that. Then we also incentivize payment through Momo. It reduces our exposure, and then it means that we can now actually track
how much money we physically have in the system. What that does, it increases deposits in the banking system. If you have the money on your Momo wallet, the next thing you can move it between your bank account and your Momo. We also work with the commercial banks to make your telephone number your bank account number for the unbanked. So if you don't have a bank account number already, we're going to take your mobile phone number and make it your bank account number. So that means your mobile phone number is more than a mobile phone number. Like in China, WeChat, right from your phone, you can do everything. Your number is tied to you. We want to do the same thing that's happening in other countries, bring it right here. True, our old approach. That's for the just for the monetary side of things. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. FREEMAN, all of what you're saying, I mean, we want to like revolutionize the country, digitalize the country. Right. It comes with a lot of things. Here we are, we're still grappling with the problem of electricity, for example. You say you're going to outsource LEC and all of that. For all of these things to work, let's look at the power generating capacity first of the country. How do you intend, if you were president of Liberia, that every little zinc shacks and everywhere, I mean, you have electricity and people will now be able to use their phone fluently like you're intending to? How do you do that?
Mr. Trojan Kazulu, brilliant question. I had before here, the CBL report. I would have gone on, but that's why you see I came with my laptop. The typical politicians come and talk. I wish Mr. SORBOR George could come and see. This is a Central Bank of Liberia report. Not me. Because you see, you can see it, but you can't.
Go ahead.
How many number of subscribers? I want you to read it, because if I read it, you will see number of subscribers. What you see here, this is mobile money subscriber and agent report. Maybe you can read it for him, because I don't want to read it. So no, you read 2021. 2021, you had 2.7 million mobile subscribers, right? 2022, you had 9,248,817 mobile subscribers on the mobile on the Momo network transaction, which jumped from between 2021 to 2022, it jumped by 232.5%. Not my data, Central Bank of Liberia. But let's go further. Let's count down. The total volume of money done in terms of the total value of US dollar and Liberian dollar. So let's take the total value here. What you see here. In 2021, we did 1.4 billion US dollar through mobile money. By 2022, we did 2.2 billion US dollar through mobile money. Liberian dollar, how much did we do? As you can see here, Liberian dollar, we did value. We did 251 billion Liberian dollars in 2021, and we did 281 billion Liberian dollars in 2022.
So it's increasing.
So now my report, you see, I'm taking data. That's why I'm saying you need expertise to lead the country. When you get a country to people that don't understand these things, the data is available for us to use. So that's why you see me preaching that. So when you say electricity is not hindering this flow. What I will do as president,
no, I'm talking about overall digitalizing the country. You can't do it outside of.
But you can, because listen, digitization is about towers. You already have the towers across the country. By working with the mobile phone companies, that thing where when you in certain areas your signal is bad, what we will do, you see all of this confusion, other countries have solved it. Nigeria have solved it, Ghana have solved it. You know how they solve it? Instead of Celcom having tower, Lone Star tower, this other man tower, they got one company. All the companies came together and sold the assets to one management company. So it means Celcom and Lone Star will be paying rental fee. If Mr. Trojan Kazulu, Mr. George wants to do anything that has to do with broadcast, you pay to that company. So instead of having all this saturation in one community, you got what? Lone Star Tower, Celcom Tower. That one tower will take Lone Star and Celcom and we spread that tower throughout the country. It's happening. It's not right here. Ghana is doing it. Nigeria is doing it. Kenya has done it. South Africa has done it. It is that archaic way of running the country that's killing the country. That's why I'm saying you need expertise. Okay. Because these data are available. But I was going on the issue of economic transformation. I was coming to electricity.
Yeah.
Honor Madam Salif or Honor Boycott, and what did they do? We won the Millennium Challenge Cup, about $263 million or so, thereabouts, tend to be corrected. We already had a 44 megawatt power infrastructure on Mankofe Hydro. We increased it to 88 megawatt. Like, Mankofe Hydro is the only river in the whole country. Firestone right here is using the John River, that small river that runs nowhere and has been giving power to Firestone for years. We got Kavala River. We got Farmington. We got St. John. What would have happened if we had taken some of that money? But that's where the lack of private understanding. Then today you won't get the same country to break out. It's going to be hurting. Put a hydro on the St. John River. Even this Dew River that runs all the way into the ocean. Put another hydro on it. Look, I have a property on the Dew River. In the evening, something surprised me. We got in the boat and we're trying something. We're coming from the Marshall side and we're coming towards Dwasson to my place here. In the evening, by about 3-4, asking about it there. The guy told me, Chief, the tide will be too strong. If you're not careful, it will turn the boat upside down, capsize the boat. We had to go towards the side of the river. I was surprised at the strength of the tide. You see that Dew River? That's the one they named Dupo after. Dew River, Dewport. Then they added a road, so they call it Dupo Road. The river that starts from there, Mesorado River comes from this side, it hits the Dew, then the Dew starts from there and goes all the way to Dwasson. We have too many rivers, but our approaches are so archaic that we want to do it the same way we then run the government that way. Somebody become president, we have managing director for LPRC, managing director for LEC, LEC board, and this one, and everything is on government head. SIMEON FREEMAN wants to change that.
Now, so what is it that you want to really achieve from just privatizing nearly every sector of the government?
No, not nearly every sector. You can privatize governance. But you can privatize those things that you don't need, which example was said. Several years ago, we tried telecom. The last money we borrowed from telecom was 18 million. I think Oscar Kuya was then the managing director under the late former President Samuel Doe. And then we move on, and it never worked. Under former President Charles Taylor was the first attempt at privatization. There were initial things with AWR, there was ICOM and all that. I don't know, you much older, you would probably know that. And then we went on to Lone Star coming in and stuff like that. And what happened today? Everybody has a mobile phone. Today, whether telecom live or die, you just don't care because you have your services. Government is getting her taxation. What do I hope to achieve?
Surely,
private sector creates jobs in all of the big economies around the world. In America, it's the private sector. In China, far from what people think, you have more private sector in China than, in fact, 70% of companies in China are privately owned. It's private sector around the world, all of the developed countries. In Liberia, what did we do? 2017, we comes to power, we add another 15,000 people to the workforce. And how did we pay them? We squeeze other people's salary in the name of straightening up things and people getting paid. And what did we do? We take that same money to pay 15,000 people. We could have taken that money and put it
far better than downsizing.
No.
No, I'm saying far better than downsizing.
The both ideas are not correct. It's not correct. That's what you see. We're changing the approach. So we want to look, Passman. Let me give you one example.
So what I will give you one example. Harmonization. I'm
coming with empowering the workforce. You see, the empowering the workforce is where an individual
empowering or reducing the workforce.
No, not. So
you see, you are privatizing now.
Yeah. So
you don't expect the private, institution or private individual to hire all of the people.
No. You see, you don't see the picture.
I'm seeing the picture.
Here's the picture. Let's take one product. Cassava. From cassava, you can set up a glue factory. Cassava is glue. From cassava, you can set up Sorbor factory. Sorbor is the thing that beer companies use around the world. I'm sure you've heard me say Thailand made $4 billion from exporting cassava, which is Liberia's GDP, disgracefully. Ecuador made $3.4 billion from exporting cassava, which is almost 80% or 80-90% of Liberia's GDP. Banana. So imagine if we had all of those multiple factories just from cassava. Sugar, I will tell you. Sugar, if you put all the sugar factories in West Africa together, West Africa still it just accounts for less than 1% of Liberia's, of West Africa's sugar need. West Africa still imports sugar. So even if we were to turn this country into sugar fuel, there will be low unemployment in this country. If we decided we're going to grow avocado has a lifespan of 40 years.
Butter pear, my people.
Yeah, the butter pear. Sorry, using the big word, butter pear. If we were to grow butter pear, we are this focused in our country. Everybody wants to focus on mining. Or what happened? One mining company gave that one mining company millions of dollars in tax break. And then what do we gain? Senior FREEMAN is saying, look, we take all of these possibilities. When I drive to the interior, Mr. Josh, tears come down my eyes.
Why?
Because I'm looking at the greenery. Liberia has one of the highest rainfall rates in the world. In fact, I think just about the highest in Africa. Monrovia, for example, has I think it's 5,000, it's mentioned 5,000 mm, one of the highest in Africa. Rainfall rate. What are we doing with that? We're importing rice, 300,000 metric tons per year. It's crazy. And we sit here every year and it becomes a perennial problem when we have the solution. So we're saying when we create factories in this country and we start to add value, you know what's going to happen? All these young girls that have babies, that have been impregnated by men, the fathers are fleeing, they will work in the factory. And they're not dull. I remember when we first opened the water factory, I decided to focus on women. So the entire bottle blowing arrangement, we're focusing on women. We're still going to do that. And the factory is easy. They just show you press this button, this one will come out, you move this one. So, and people were being paid. And one of the ladies looked at me and said, Mr. FREEMAN, one time she got her pay, she took $25. So thank you for what you're doing for us. And I said, no, I don't need your money. She was crying. No, she was crying. Because she said, look, this job has rescued me from prostitution. Today, I know the value of my body. I don't have to say yes to a guy. And that's why we're reducing our women to. And our guys, what are they doing? They're riding pempe. Because you remember several years ago, we had Isakaba, right? Isakaba was all over the place. Madam Salita, you remember? And what happened? When Pempe came, Isakaba disappeared. Our young people want job. All they need at the presidency, one man that has a clear vision, driving the country in the right direction.
Let's hear from him.
I want to know from him, what do you do with the police? What do you do with the army? The security sector, which is key. And also, I want you to tell us who will be speaking for government, because one of the things you say here is that Ministry of Information will be gone. So who will be speaking for government?
What the press secretary to the president, who will come every ministry of government already has information bureau, so they will share information with the press secretary to the president. The press secretary to the president will call press briefings, and the independent media will spread that, and government will pay the.
So you scrap information.
Yeah, you don't need it. But what is information doing, Busman, other than eating bread?
You privatize LBS.
Busman, we'll tell it to you. Let me suggest on this station here.
Let's talk about the security, please. Why does no vision for security?
Because I want Mr. George, I've been here a long time. Why you get on this station here? Let him own the station. Running the OKFM, running the Palm FM, you know, and stuff like that. But having said that, look, the security sector. When Madam Salif was president, there was about 5,000 people in the police. That number declined significantly because of the value. But let's face it, you accuse the police people of corruption. You pay the mayor, I think, $180. You don't even buy the mayor uniform. You go on the street, so the police uniform, I don't know, that blue, that turn green. Then the same police people stopping you for improper day. When I said that uniform improper, the police must be properly paid. So as president, that's why we expand our revenue base. The minimum wage for a police officer will be $350. Wow. And a police officer will have a pempe. Every police, the regional black, they will have pempe, and the gas will be provided by government. Policing must be taken seriously. If you don't take policing seriously, how do you fight crime? Because as you invest more and more into these factories, you know what's going to happen? You're going to have more cyber crime. That's why you have to have your intelligent guys. That in America, most of the crime they're fighting is not just people going to break houses. The people using technology. So, for example, some of the crimes you're fighting now, you notice the whole crime syndicate. Somebody will call you on the phone and say they send you credit and all those kinds of things. All those kinds of things are the things that policing have to fight. When there is murder, policing has to fight it. The guys are poorly capacitated. Even fire service. How can you give the office of the vice president $3.2 million US and give fire service for the whole country $1.2 million?
How can you say you're fighting drugs and you give DEA less than 500,000 and the vice president operational fund is 1.2 million and the president office get 5 million? We got to be serious. That's why we want to change the approach. So our approach to policing, we want to give them uniform. When you go to Accra, you don't see the police dress up?
Well dressed.
Well dressed. The guys are funded. You go to a police station in Accra, it's totally different. But you come to our police station, you go there, by the time you lock or complain, the first man say, the man will say, my man, you got a back end or no level, you know, and you got to bring money for shit. You carry the complaint, you got to bring money for shit. Is that not corruption? So because the system we've established, we enabling those outcomes. So for me, the police will remain under the state, but the police has to be capacitated to do its work. And when the police is capacitated, then fines become digital. Look, simply put, Mr. Kiazulu, you know what we're going to do? Your license plate will have a barcode on it. We're leveraging technology. The police that will be running behind you, stop that man, stop that man, stop that man. That 1940, 19 the police will use his barcode scanner on your phone and scan your license plate. He knows that you committed an offense, and when he gets the bar scanner, code scanner, you know what the information will be on that barcode scanner? Your mobile phone number. He can text you. If you committed so and so offense, and kindly report to the police station. If we don't see you within so and so time, we will send your bill. And that bill, you know where it's going? It's going to LRA. Now, LRA knows now Mr. SORBOR George, Mr. Kiazulu Momo number. If the bill goes there, they can easily go into you with the acquiescence and approval.
Okay.
You make taxation and collection and compliance easy.
Not talking about
so you see, when you do that as well, the army as well, since 1847, Liberia has never been to war with anybody. I think we need to review the status of the army and make it more part of our developmental infrastructure. So I will want to sit with the army and work on a gradual infrastructure. And the gradual infrastructure will be one, to see how the army will be part of our technical development, our rural infrastructure, instead of sitting down. Over time, we can phase them out. All right, but that would be my first focus in terms of the way it is, instead of having phase them out. What do you mean? Phase out in terms of over time. Yeah, over time. Over time, we can work with them over time, so that you don't necessarily have to go toward dissolution, but you go toward it being part of the development infrastructure of our country. In many countries, you see armies building road. In many countries, you see armies helping with agriculture. They have a lot of skills in the army, and the guys are just sitting in the barracks. So we want to be able to look at that and use it holistically. My goal as president, every tax dollar collected that belongs to the people of Liberia must be utilized adequately, instead of just spend, wasted. It doesn't justify and doesn't make sense for us to be in Monrovia, eat up all the money, and only thing we give to the people of Grand Bassa stories, people of Bond stories, people of Nima story. Year in, year out, from one government to next, people see no change. Nothing's happening. And people are getting old. One president goes for 6 years. If he goes for 2 terms, that's 12 years. So if you are 20 years or 12 years added to your age, you actually 32, and you got nothing to show, and you've got responsibility. We either want to change Liberia, or we want to give Liberia to people that have no understanding of what they're doing and maintain the status quo and feeling that it's not working. How can Ghana, that came to Liberia in 1980, Ghanaians came here to buy rice, sugar, all kinds of things? How come by 1980 their GDP and our GDP was just probably $2-4 billion apart? Today they are 70 billion, 72 billion, and where are we? Ghana is the 10th largest in Africa, and where are we? We are just struggling at 4 billion. As a matter of fact, we wonder, from 2017 to 2022, Rwanda grew her GDP by 4 billion. From 2017 to 2022, we grew our GDP by 300 and something million. Are we serious?
What's your vision on road infrastructure?
Excellent. Studies were done. And these studies were done by some guys from Harvard University. They said we need probably 10 to $15 billion there, but I stand to be corrected, but I think about $10 billion to connect the country.
And when they wrote that report, it was several years ago. A lot has changed, because if you have not built a road to a place before, it's different. You know, all of the bridges you have to build has to be accounted for. So let's put it at about $2 million to build a mile of paved road out of Liberia. We don't have that money immediately. But guess what? During the Torbo years, you could leave from Maryland and come to Monrovia. During the Totmo years, you could. They had something called PUA. Every county had machinery, right? And they had a technical expertise. As president, what I would do a road, I will maintain the road. The road from here to Tapeta will be maintained, because if anybody come and tell you they will build a road, first thing first, that person is a liar. Why? One, Liberia right now is spending about 18 to 20% of our national budget. That's almost $120 million a year on debt service costs. We have borrowed a little over $2 billion already. So where are we now? If we borrow a little over $2 billion, where are you going to borrow the money from to build a road? Unless you squeeze down the government. Even if you squeeze down the government, you have to expand your tax base. And now besides that, most of the debt that was taken by previous government, you now still have to pay because it's a national liability. What I would do, we'll do intervention. Look, when they say the road from here to Nimba the road from Nimba to Tapeta, Saklepie to Tapeta is bad. To Grand Jida is bad. It's not the entire length of the road. You've been up there. So those places we can dig, we put in sand, we put in crossroad, we'll cover it up, and you can move. The other day I was going to Dambala in Cape Man, right? Passing through Generally. I think some company operating behind it, they've done that. So at every point of the road, they've done interventions.
So you just be patching the roads and not doing
you have to do that, because your first priority is like a mother who has $100. You have to deal with feeding, you have to deal with tuition. The money we're collecting, our first focus will be to create jobs for our people. The increased revenue collected from the factories will then go on to long-term infrastructure development, because you see, infrastructure development is expensive. Take the road from Monrovia to Ganta. We spent $260 something million on our road. How much are we getting from there in terms of back payment? So when you create the industries, and then
that is more sustainable than the patching of the road.
The patching is sustainable because the biggest challenge,
because during the rainy season you have to go again to work on the roads. Why can't you do a full rehabilitation of the roads? That's the patching.
Mr. George.
Yes, sir.
You're speaking to somebody who had equipments before and built roads. Okay. So I'm not speaking like a novice. As one of the businesses I did, that was that. You see, when you're driving on the road, we have all driven on muddy road. We're driving on the road. It's not the entire stretch of the road that is bad, but the areas that are bad. So what you do firstly, sand is a good absorber of water, because what makes the road bad is that the soil, that area, the soil is bad, and it's a poor absorber of water. So the water comes up, and when weight is applied, what happens? Then it leads to that challenge in terms of confrontation that will call the water and all that. So what you do, you dig that area, you dig that area, you put in sand. When you put in sand, you put in rocks, then you can put the laterite. What happens when water touches that surface? The sand absorbs the water underground because it goes through the laterite. So what happens? The road will be passable even during the rainy season. That's what the old government did. The road will be passable. So your goal is to make sure trade connectivity is not hindered during your most severe period. The other challenge is when you fix the road, you have to curve it. You notice in the old day, the roads were curved like this with corners so that water slides. Right now, they just grading on top of the road. When you do that, the road will be accessible, usable, and possible during the rainy season. Anybody that tell you, I will build road, I'm mortal. Because the truth is, you don't have the money. Our entire budget is less than $1 billion, far less than $1 billion. But your first priority as a president will be to take the money you have, create the factories. Then you start collecting money from the factories. You start collecting money from income tax. My second key priority will be public housing.
Okay.
Public housing, because the reason why, look, on a Torbo, you have public housing. Stephen Torbo, Barnersville, New Joy. If you make $300 in Monrovia, you can buy land.
because you can't afford it. Even if you buy land to what now, you'll be paying almost 2,000, 3,000 US just for one lot. And then when do you build? So what I want to do is invest in that. We set up private companies. We're not going to there's not going to be anything called National Housing Authority, because these are the problems. Mr. SORBOR George supports me. He living in one of the houses, 3-bedroom with a family. He doesn't pay rent. 6 months, people won't put him outside. Then he calls me, Mr. Freeman, they put your man outside. I said, what do you mean? I call the managing director. Managing director, I'm Senator so and so, or I'm Honorable so and so. Mr. SORBOR George living in C so and so. You put him, that man, I want my strong people, I report I support it, or get a man chance. Okay, Honorable. Now the whole program collapsed. I'm not dealing with that kind of thing. We take government money, we loan it through the commercial bank to private individuals. So it will give you 20 million, you build a number of homes. When you spend the 20 million, build the homes, you, Mr. George, will sell the homes back to the bank. Mr. Kiazulu wants the house, he goes to the bank gave him the house. So no honorable can call anybody to the bank and say, you're putting the man out, he didn't pay euro. So I want to ensure that if I don't pay, if you don't pay, you lose the house. That's the system. Because we gave you a job. Then I will call you. If you call me there, if I want to use my own money, I give it to you, then I give it to you. But at least you will pay the bank. We will not let certain people that are unsuspecting ruin a good national program that is intended to help everybody. So with that kind of public housing program, what happened? West Point will disappear. Claritown will disappear. Because now you have organized living. People will have 1-bedroom apartment. They will have 2-bedroom apartment. They will have a 1-bedroom. Organized living where you have bathroom in the house. We will not be having NGO come here to teach us how when we finish toileting, we must wash our hands, because you got bathroom in your house. You got running water. What's the justification year in, year out? That's what I told you, for having water and sewer. I pray that they could give me water and sewer, let me run it, so we can see if it's not going to make money.
Okay.
Now I want to ask you on this issue of drugs.
Right.
It is something global that is also affecting us here in Liberia currently. A lot of our youth, young people, are hooked
Onto drugs.
We recently heard about 100 million drug busts. We recently heard about the moringa tea,
right,
if you may, that then turned to meth.
Right.
So if you become president, what would be your approach? Because this issue about drug and it being fought is just not a problem unique to Liberia. It is a problem unique to even the great United States of America that is still grappling with all the sophistication to fight against the drugs. So what will you do in a poor country like Liberia that has been used as a transit for these substances? What will you do?
So the first thing you want to do, Bossman, you see, the U.S. government has been very helpful. The guys at the RIAC, they got a tip-off. The same thing that happened at the Freeport of Monrovia, there was a tip-off and all those things. But having said that, the first thing you want to do, there are two problems, two aspects to every problem. The first thing is, what are we doing wrongly? Let's start with DEA. We must ask ourselves, the 500,000 we're giving DEA for the whole, I think they said DEA got one pickup, all of them can be on the guys from joking and all that.
So those DEAs already, it's part of the privatization plan.
Oh, no, it's not. You don't privatize it. You give it more money, because these are the institutions that fight sanity. But that's so you give more money to DEA and strengthen and capacitate it. The second thing you do, you install scanners of all of our port of entry. Critical scanners, right? They have the scanners that will scan those things and see what's in it. If you suspect something, so even if you brought in a container, they have container scanner. Just like when you pass in at the airport, you'll be able to see everything within that container. Those are some of the first steps. The second step is you introduce some laws that will make the issue of drug input, the culprits, selling drug non-billable.
I think that drug
we have that now already.
It's already excellent. So when you have that, that's some of the steps. The third thing is a whole chain that you do, not just one aspect. The third thing you do is the Supreme Court of Liberia. The judges at the Supreme Court are heavily underfunded. You expect one judge to listen to 200 cases per month and read 500 files. We put more money into the judiciary so that each judge will have at least 5 or 4 professional lawyers assigned to his office. So that what that will do, it will accelerate cases faster, right? So that means the whole corruption chain is, if you do something to me, I know that when I go to court, it will not take 5 years there. I know that in 6 months, I will get some solution. Then the last but not the least, which is the most important thing, studies have been done. Even the drug you talk about in America, regions around the world where people are unemployed, they take drugs quite a lot. Studies were done in Spain, it was done in Italy. That's why you see most of the drug places in America are black neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods. The rich what a rich man case, most of the time he's more focused on other objectives. That's why I want to focus on creating jobs in our country. And you know, Isakaba was a really good example. When Isakaba was so prevalent during Madam Shelley's presidency, you remember? When Pempen got onto the street, nobody had to drive those guys. People went. So I think if we put all of these things in place, strengthen the judicial system, strengthen the institution that by financing them more that has to fight drug, then also you put in structures at the port, so they will be at all of the ports, they have the scanner, it's integrated, then you're giving these guys jobs, drug will not be an alternative. But for now, young people are built in a way that when there is no activity, they will take drugs.
Okay, so let's hear from you. What are you thinking about the health sector?
Oh, the health sector, one of my key priorities. So with the health sector, what I want to do, similar to education, we want to take the health sector and privatize it and use the challenges of the health sector to create jobs for our people.
Privatize the health sector like...
So give me a chance, I'll flow.
Yeah. Because,
go ahead.
When I say you're trying to privatize the entire government, you say, no.
You see, there are
key sectors
but you see,
that you intend
we
to
have
privatize.
failed miserably at these things. It hasn't worked. Every year since 1847, we've been running the country one way, where Minister of Health, go to Grand Bassa County Hospital, it doesn't work. You remember I work with a team of medical doctors, Liberian medical doctors called LISUP, and I sent them across this country. They went across this country. I also followed them and went with them. Gentlemen, sometimes take your microphone to those places. I cried. I saw people, they were operating goiter. Goiter is this thing where you see a woman, there's big knot in control, they just growth, in interior people have it. You know what cause it? I didn't know. No salt. Because they're not eating salt. So women have been thrown out of their homes, rejected by their husband, because all of a sudden they started growing this big thing. Our people are so poor that they can't afford salt. And when you go to the hospitals, what made me cry? Most of the hospitals we went to, no air conditioning in the operating room. The operating bed not even flexible or correct. At times we have to buy air conditioners. Generators don't even... Oh, the health system is terrible.
When did you make that trip?
You remember when Madam, I think you were a father at the time. Madam Salif was
that was the last administration, right?
Yeah, but even now, I was just in Basel, my friend. When I go to the place, I was just in Cape Town. I was there. Nothing. But Mr. George, I can finance your trip. Don't take offense. I can finance your trip so you can take a trip. Take your microphone to those hospitals. Grand Basel County Hospital is just there. In fact, let me tell you, even in Monrovia, let's leave Grand Basel County. Some children came to my swimming pool. They were swimming, youth from our church. One of the boys, he jumped from the place and his foot slipped. So he fell on the other side, I have an island around the pool. And the guy got wounded. They took him to the hospital. The doctor said, all the hospital they went to, you leave a man in a car, the wounded man, and you'll come. We should come, leave them. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced those kinds of things. What do I want to do with health? We'll take the health system and we'll regionalize it, same way with education. We have our private stuff, and we then tell you how we want a hospital run. We tell you what we want in a hospital. The air conditioners we want, the operating bed, the trained nurses. We'll tell you how we want.
How many staff?
I'm sure, we'll not tell you how many.
I'm
staff.
sure JFK is one of those places.
Yeah, of course. JFK has to go. You don't see it never work. All that land to get whatever. Now we should have more hospital. JFK doesn't work. Every year you go there, they tell you no better. Right now, to be admitted to JFK is by contact. So having said that, and those things are not working.
Throwing jabs at JFK administration.
No, I'm not doing that. That's not just
JFK. Have you tried that before? You just throwing jabs here.
Mr. George, that's the reality. But like I said, I can finance your trip because journalists need these programs, so you can go there and see. But here's what happened. When you gave this thing to private people, you can't tell them now how many places, but you just set the standard. So that means the government issue policy and say what a hospital will look like, right? A hospital must have a laboratory, a hospital must have pharmacy, all these prescriptions we give it. And we come, like you see, they have the restaurant brew in America that come and check your private restaurant to make sure it's in compliance with this and that. So that would be the job of the Ministry of Health to just check for compliance. What do? You don't have the money. So we take some of government fund again, we put it to the commercial bank loan you, and you invest in the capacity of the hospital. Now, how do we give free health to the ordinary Liberian? Then we go to the insurance company. We work with existing insurance company, we create additional insurance companies, and we work with them to give you insurance cards. An insurance card it will have a microchip, like a debit card. So, Mr. Kazulu, if the government decides that every Liberian family will be entitled to, say, $300 per year for health, then we give you that card. So now you see, with the insurance card, you have a lot more people working in insurance companies, right? Now you have a problem now has become an opportunity. So you have a lot of people working within the insurance company, in insurance pool. Then Mr. George or Mr. Kazulu has a problem, he goes to the hospital. You give your card, firstly, they put it in, they will see you have 300 on it. This is your name, these are your details. When they finish treating you, if your treatment came to $50, they take the $50 off. How do the insurance companies get paid? The government of Liberia, again, will pay those insurance companies for those to whom card has been issued. Now, if your card is exhausted and you want to recharge it, you can recharge it. Or let's say you have some in America, or let's say say my mother is in Basel and her card has 300 on it and I want to put another 700 on it because of her critical health, I can reload the card for myself. So it will be rechargeable both ways using Momo. So it's a win-win for all. There is no problem. The private sector runs it. Now, if Mr. George cannot run his own regional hospital, Mr. Kazulu running the other regional hospital, he can buy over Mr. George and take over the hospital privately run, but government will ensure that its citizens have access to good health and is working and is creating jobs. Now, so we want to use all of the country's problem to create jobs and create opportunities instead of running the same old way.
All right, now let's come to one of Liberia's headache, if not the most, corruption. We've been having this issue of fighting corruption for a very long time. In fact, I want to go back to as far as when Liberia was funded. We've been trying to fight corruption.
Right.
That has been a problem.
We've been pretending to try to fight it.
Okay, whether we've been
So how do you deal with it?
But you coming now, corruption being one of the vices that has kept Liberia down in a state of poverty. How do you go about?
So Mr.
Were you treated as public enemy number one?
Well, you see, all the political rhetoric there. You know, I see my brother walking around with broom. I'm no corruption, a human being. Then Madam Salif said, "Oh, the thing are public enemy number one." Then she somersaulted when her own children were involved. Look, corruption is an outcome. We forget the processes. The first step you want to do, like I was saying.
Now corruption is ingrained in our system.
Slow down. We'll deal with that. Possibly you can take it out easily. The first thing is, where does corruption cases go? Is it not to the court? This whole thing you say, corruption in a chair, corruption in a school, corruption this. If one judge has about 4 capable lawyers with him, it means you will have 0 cases on a judge book. It means I can sue you today and tomorrow the judge will say, you and your lawyer, come, let's hear the case. He can rule on our case in the next 30 days because he has a team of helpers. We gave him $17 million to the judiciary
If you live in Grand Bassa County, you only have one court. The court is where? I think in Buchanan City. The other places, you got no real serious courthouse, right? And you don't even have lawyers there. So when we do that for the judiciary, what will happen? The judiciary will set up in every administrative subdivision, like what we call district. There will be a court, and then there can be lawyers that will work with that. So when we pump in, let's say we step up the judicial support to about $25-30 million. What will then happen with all of those capable lawyers, even at the Supreme Court? Why you think we have hundreds of cases that the Supreme Court have not looked at? One Supreme Court judge, he has to see people in a day's time. They have to deal with many other cases. How much cases can they look at? So when you work with that, it accelerates the resolution of the problem. The second phase is the second phase is how do you appoint? Let's take from the government perspective, anti-corruption commission, GAC, and all those things. Everything we have a powerful presidency appointed by the president, chief justice appointed by the president. I want to move away from that. The Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission has a board of commissioners. Senior FREEMAN doesn't have to appoint it. What we do, we say to the accounting board. Accounting board gave us some of your best brains. Give us 2. The name comes to the president, he will pick 1. We say to the legal board, the bar association, give us 2 of your best names. It will come to me, I will appoint. We'll go to the CPAs, give us 2. So all of it, you see, men of integrity. They are giving me. I'm not coming and looking at Mr. Kiazulu. I've been knowing this guy. He was a father, that my boy, he will seek my interest. So when you have capable men of capacity, you see, integrated institutions must be run by men of integrity. Isn't that how it is done? Before the chief justice is appointed, the lawyer association are they not involved? No. That's not what is currently done. You can seek more clarity. That's not what is done. These things. There's a lot of presidents. I want to make it. I want to legislate it. Let it be law that the president should appoint names given to him by the following professional organization. So let me tell you why you need that process. That's why you see in America, the mayor, or in Europe, the mayor can look at you, Mr. President George. That thing you want me to help you with, I can't do it. I cannot. This man did this, and you see what's happening in America. The president's son, they came out with all this. The judge said, well, I can't sign this thing. The judge said, no, you got to go back and correct this thing because this will not be allowed. So you got to have people of integrity serving integrity institutions. But when the president appoints his own people at different institutions, then you're not fighting corruption. It's further exacerbated. The other aspect of those individual cases of corruption, whether in business, once you have a judiciary that is on course, that help change that. The other thing would be technology. You see, we have to leverage technology. Look, Mr. George, get a critical news here. And I'm not saying this guy is a bad guy, right? You take the news, you want to send it to the MD. Carry the paper to the MD quick. You may get a smartphone, you just take the picture. He sent it to them like, damn, man, the news are getting that small news. Oh, you are giving something for this. Oh. He gets something because of what you gave him. If we have processes that are technologically driven, we will reduce a lot of the instances and incidences of corruption. But all of our systems are vulnerable. It opens us up from a governmental perspective. From the private sector, the corruption is there because a church can sue and be sued. So if the church exploited you, you can sue. Many people are reluctant to go to court because it takes years. And then you have to be to and fro. So when we work on all of those processes, corruption in our society, you can eliminate it, but you can alleviate it.
Okay, so very shortly we'll open the lines. Our lines are blinking already. But before then, let me ask this question, Mr. SIMEON FREEMAN. I'm sure this is your second time running for the presidency?
Right.
Okay. Now, if you don't, this time around, you don't succeed, what will be your recourse?
I can predict the future, and I can sit down here and say what's going to happen 6 years from now. But one thing I can say, when we reach that bridge, we'll cross it.
Okay. If I told maybe there was second round, or maybe you were pushed out by the opposition bloc or by the ruling coalition to join, which of them?
Simeon Freeman is not an individual that owns his decision. NPC is an institution and has an executive committee. That's a decision the party makes, and whichever way I would prefer to go, I will follow the path of the party as the political leader.
Are you certain to win the presidency?
Definitely. Mr. George,
you know,
as I was talking, I saw you became pensive. I know you're going to give me your vote. Because why? You want a better Liberia.
Okay, so
let me ask my Mr. Freeman, a lot of people say you have all of the brilliant ideas, right. You say things according to data and all of that. But the thing is, what you say, most of what you say, the ordinary Liberian people do not seem to be getting you, and because of that, you're not in the forefront of those who.
Many times, people are in the forefront when they launch. So wait till we launch, then you will know whether we're in the forefront or not.
So when are you launching?
Oh, soon. My people are deciding it's either going to be October 5th or October 7th, thereabout. We're not launching, we're going to be closing because we started our campaign already. Okay. So we're going to be closing our campaign either on the 5th of October or the 7th.
You launched, we didn't know already.
Yeah, we launched differently. So all of these places that I'm going, I don't just use. So our style of campaigning was different. We don't want to do the other one where people say I'm launching campaign or all that. So we decided to go from point to point. I'm sure you must have gone with me. We're in Basel. People that have gone with me to different places. We're in Burma. We've gone a lot of places. You know, we cover a lot of places.
That's a campaign trail you own.
So that's it. So for us, that's a launch.
So that's your launch.
That's my launch. Okay. So for us, we'll be closing our campaign at that point where we're calling all of our supporters together from point to point.
Are we going to see a tsunami?
Well, hopefully,
because crowd politics is something like Liberia now. Crowd politics is something like Liberia now.
From the places we've gone, the people we've seen. The other day I was on the Oro. I even had to stand under the rain with the women, with the people. You can see people are hungry for change. And don't forget, there are 894,000 registered voters in Monserrado alone. So one day somebody poll 50,000, another day another person poll 60,000. It's not all of the people. You still have lots of people that were home yesterday. When CDC launched, you have lots of people that are still home. And so when we launch, lots of people will come up, but there will still be lots of people. And there are people who support you, they may never come onto the street.
What is your election budget? How much are you operating with?
You operate with what next year you operate with.
What's your budget?
That's what I'm saying. You operate with what next year.
I don't know. That's the reason I'm asking.
But that's what you, the journalist.
No, I'm asking you.
Please go and research what next year you can.
What is Simeon Freeman value?
That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm not talking about
my personal thing.
Yeah, personal thing.
Oh, you can check my assets. If you check the billings, you check the properties all over. We're solid. You know, if you check what we have in Ghana, no, we're not in billion. We're more than 200 million. But you know, if you check what we have in Ghana, Nigeria, here, and all that, it's different.
Okay.
You know, you the assets.
For transparency's sake, will you make public?
That's one of the things I will work on.
President.
The current asset declaration is just a piece of paper. You write anything you want to write on it. My asset declaration format that we will introduce will be supported by data. We want to see photocopies of your land deed that you have. We want to see evidence of your bank account. We want to see those things because then we can then use it as a basis where we have an exit audit for you to determine that, yes, you said it. And besides that, let me just say, like I was saying at the Central thing, you know, sometimes when people look at it from an elementary standpoint, those are us that are in the world of finance. Somebody can steal $5 billion, you won't even see it. The man can register a company in Mauritius as an offshore company, register that same company as a local company. He gets physical cash, 1 million, take it to that company can invest it for him. You will never see that he has money. We want to be able to drive and investigate reasons for action. That's why many times you can just talk stealing. You don't see people money. People have ways. People have havens. People parking money in Dubai. People have ways they used to move it. Even like doing Madam Selifton, some of the tracker we did, people used to drive from here to Freetown, put the money in their account there, move it from Sierra Leone. There are many ways criminals move money. So we want to be able to leverage technology in ways that we can track movement, we can track resources. Let me give you an example. In America, one guy was Minister of Commerce, and he increased the price of flour. 5 years later, after the investigation was concluded, the founder, he increased the price of flour, not because there was a price increase globally, but because he had been persuaded with financial benefits, and it made him pay the money back.
Okay. Finally,
so you have to investigate reasons for action.
Okay, finally, how is Freeman City?
Oh, it's going good. The whole concept of
have you heard about Freeman City?
No, I haven't.
This man doesn't follow us much.
So how is Freeman City?
It's really
Oh, it's going good. I showed you the design. The other day, machinery should be in. Once they come in, we should be able to start. But like I said, that will be done in phases. We're learning some lessons. There is another place being built right by Shuffling. You notice? There's a place being built right by Shuffling. We noticed that guy is not selling much. And so that's beginning to inform us. It means the economy is not strong enough for people to buy houses. You make $200, $300, you may not be able to afford $30-something thousand house. So that doesn't mean we're not going to start. We already have the query machines coming. We can keep it going. We have to run those. But again, I'm too focused with elections now.
Okay, so let's try to open the lines quickly. You listen to SIMEON FREEMAN. He's one of Liberia's presidential candidates. This is the man who's said that when he wins, he's going to ensure that the Ministry of Information is crabbed. He's going to scrap the Ministry of Information. He's going to privatize LBS, ELBC. He's going to ensure that there's no small but effective government because we're going to privatize. So, but he said, if you are not employed, you don't have the, you don't have the opportunity to be employed by the investors, they will still find a way to train and employ you elsewhere. He said we're going to make sure to patch the roads, not to do all full road rehabilitation. We'll be in the business of patching roads and putting more monies in the judiciary. You can put your calls quickly on 0776540-987 or better still 0880-514-096. Good morning. Good morning. Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Sergeant Robert. And let me say good morning to Big Dollar SIMEON FREEMAN and to the people of Nigeria in abstention. This is activate my free render. And I do join you from the Center for the Exchange of Intellectual Opinion.
Okay.
I brought this morning to extend my case and opinion to Big Dollar SIMEON FREEMAN for living up to the commitment I see you right now. As I said for you, you have platform and you have DSTV. Better SIMEON FREEMAN have paid the DSTV subscription of 1 year. Having said that, I have one recommendation for you. In this time, please share SIMEON FREEMAN with Sarah Blessed Johnson. Because, mind you, these are the two people that is making serious educated sense and providing the free Liberian people. And I believe in my mind, the only person that can score SIMEON FREEMAN off is Sarah Blessed Johnson when it comes to providing the access for the people of Liberia. Thank you for the opportunity.
Many thanks also. Many thanks. Let me take this caller. Good morning.
Yes, good morning to the EFBC family and good morning to Stephen Guest. I'm Wesley Johnson, following you on district number 15, the Queasquare Intellectual Center, present district number 15 also.
Okay.
Let me appreciate your Stephen Guest. I think it's best to make Liberia to be great again is a good word, but I think the thought and belief of Liberia to be developed, it is the same way that President we are also want for Liberia to be developed. So I'm kind of asking to support President we are because the same developmental agenda he has. President we has the same developmental agenda. So my question is President we are question.
Okay.
I'm asking to John President we are for Liberia to be great again. So
okay. Many thanks. Let's take this caller. Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you, Sorbor.
Yes,
I really appreciate you for this platform.
Okay.
I equally appreciate your guests. My name is Aman Kosman Debe, and I joined the conversation from station number 15.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mr. FREEMAN has made just argument. One of them that capital has to do with he shared the private sector contributes to growth economically. So if you have such an idea, one would expect as the private citizens to help contribute, in the private sector, so that we can experience growth in our country. But unfortunately, Mr. FREEMAN Institute has focused on growing the Ghanaian economy by investing in Ghana. He has focused his attention on growing the Nigerian economy because he has invested heavily in Nigeria. He has also focused his attention on growing the South African economy because he has invested. I mean, these people, you have provided a job for them, right? But you refuse to provide the maximum job that you need to provide for your country. And unfortunately, you want us to give you an opportunity to provide leadership, but you refuse to grow our economy. I mean, how do you reconcile that?
Okay, many thanks. Let's take this caller. Good morning. Good morning.
Soba, how you doing?
I'm okay, sir.
Steven Zong, Zulu Whiskey.
Let's hear from you.
2 points I want to inject into this discussion. One is the reason Liberia is like this is because every Liberia want to be better than the other. If your friend there an opportunity, then you say you better buy your friend. They will put you there. So for that reason, we just changing president there. So all these dreams cannot succeed. The second issue is that there are two key things in this world. You got inventor and you get manufacturer. You can never be an inventor at the same time a manufacturer. You can never be a manufacturer at the same time an inventor. So if an inventor is there to discover, he pass it on to the manufacturer. FREEMAN that is in studio there with all the Google discovery he has made, I think he should pass them over to the manufacturer who is George by Google. We are. Thank you.
Many thanks. I take this caller. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yes, sir. Your name and where you calling from?
Marcus Noble is my name. I'm calling from SCNL, my office.
Okay.
I really admire Mr. FREEMAN this morning, but you know the issue is that the number issue in our country is a serious problem, and I just hope our politicians are listening to him, and they can really, get a lot of stuff from him, to use for their own purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Many thanks. Let's take this caller. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Hi.
Let's hear from you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning and good morning to your chief guests. I'm Mr. Yasabra. I listen keenly to Mr. FREEMAN. He has said all the good things, but something I said can't understand.
Mm-hmm.
With all that he has explained, how long will it take him that Liberia will be able to achieve a dream?
Okay.
He had left out the entire legislature. There is nothing measured. You just do it out of magic. You just say as a president and leave the lawmaker out. Thank you.
Okay. Many thanks. Let's take this caller. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Mr. George?
I'm okay. Who is it?
This is J. Maxine Beaton.
Communication
from the Ministry of Education.
Okay, Maxine, let's hear from you quickly.
We want to appreciate Mr. FREEMAN this morning, but I just want to remind him that the statistic he gave, the data he gave to Liberian people today is not true. Let him come over to the Ministry of Education. We're giving a comprehensive and a recent data that is finalized so that he can go to deliberate on them. But those data that were read previously on the talk show is false, is misleading, and it is not true.
Excuse me. Good morning, Mr. Beaton.
Good morning.
This is Trojan. Where can we find the data? Because I'm asking specifically. No, can we find it online? No, I asked Mr. Senior FREEMAN specifically. He said the data was from 2018. He said the data was from 2018. So, and according to him, there's not been a new data.
Mr. Kessely,
so we got. So I got to come to the office to get it.
Of the Ministry of Education.
Okay, no. Basically, he was just saying that Mr. Senior FREEMAN is running with, he's running with erroneous data. Why you just running? Okay. Good morning.
Outdated or erroneous?
Wrong.
Good morning, George, and good morning to our studio guests. So I admire the deliberation and presentation of our studio guests, but I have a question for our studio guests. Since when the president of this country, Dr. George Manneh Weah, took office, he made an attempt to call series of meetings that comprised both the ruling,
government officials and opposition community. I want to know why Mr. Freeman have attempted to attend any of those meetings. If not, why? And if he attended, what were some of the suggestions that he put for the 4 miles of our country? Thank you for affording me.
Okay, I'm sure Mr. Freeman is taking notes to respond to those concerns. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, SORBOR, and good morning to the civil guests.
Yes, sir.
I'm David Douglas. I'm calling from Maria resident. Firstly, I would like to appreciate your studio guest this morning for a lengthy deliberation. But my concern has been joined to all of the analysis and the data you are providing, all of the ideas. In the case of Liberia, and the government of Liberia is a government for every Liberian. Having provided some of these ideas or some of the recommendations to the current government or the past government, these are some of the things. If you are a Liberian, don't just sit and wait for yourself to do it. You can work with other government to achieve what you want to achieve. You are a Liberian. So I want to know if you are making all the recommendations to the government, the current government or the past government. And to the second issues, the issue have to do with the long issue this morning. That SIMEON in the studio that today show a clear indication that this government is a government that expresses tolerance. Everybody have access to the state-owned radio. These are deceptive people that want to lead our country to care about the chaos that have a side. This is a government that is free and open to every Liberian. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think he's listening to my monologue this morning on the Darius Dillon issue. I don't know why he's trying to comment on. Good morning. Good morning. Hello? Oh, this caller is not ready. Let me take this other caller. Good morning.
Good morning, SORBOR.
Yes, sir.
Good morning to the people.
Okay.
I'm here for this morning to hire one of my political experience uncle who has in the political race, a lot of experience. I'm listening to you. I'm coming asking you as a Liberian who ready to make Liberian. I'm support your vision from before and also now. I'm asking you, I'm so sincere this morning to hear you when I hear you. I'm coming to ask you that I'm not a rated deployment officer, so I'm making this morning to please subsidize my number to stop at that state everyone already. Please, I didn't hear that.
Okay. So how does he get in touch with you? Hello? He's off the line. But he wants you to pay his rent, I'm sure. Yeah, he'll do it for you. He's a presidential aspirant. He needs a vote. Good morning. Good morning.
So you publicly encourage corruption?
No, but the message you pay rent. Good morning. Yeah, good morning. Oh, there's this caller. But this is what happens quickly. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Honorable Freeman.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, this is Archiviko Do. I'm the head of communications at the National Disaster and an education stakeholder. I just like to add on to what Mr. Maxim Blitten said, but with a little caution to MOE. The data that on FREEMAN release is actually an authentic data, but that is 2018.
Right. That's
so I will advise that he gets the most recent, and I advise that MOE can upload the most recent data because we all have access to the data. So you can text me or WhatsApp, and then I will send the most recent data. Even on FREEMAN, if he needs the most recent data, I can send it to him now.
Okay. So it shouldn't be that difficult.
Okay, many thanks. Good morning.
Why they get uploaded?
Good morning. Okay, let me take the call from this side now. Quickly, I want to take 2 more calls and I'll wrap it up. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, SORBOR.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, and good morning, Honorable Freeman. How are you?
Good morning, boss.
Okay, let me say this. Honorable Freeman, I do admire you all of the time when you are deliberating. But SORBOR, let me differ with Honorable Freeman when he in terms to prioritize every sector of our economy. It told me that it is an incompetent government that does not believe in herself to manage the affairs of the state. You want us to employ you to manage the affairs of the state, but you know what you're telling the Liberian people? You're giving power, I will get what you're giving me to private people. Then why do you want to go there in the first place? If you cannot manage the affairs of the state, why are you asking us to give you power? This is not the private sector. We understand that yes, we should have a private sector to be vibrant. But when you want to prioritize everything, you want the health system to be prioritized, you want the transportation system to be prioritized, you want LBS to be prioritized, you want education. Then what are you going
You're scrapping all the Ministry of Information?
You're going to take the money and sit down there and say, okay, we prioritize but we monitor. Look, that is not how you run government. Government needs to be decisive. You need to be part of the system to be able to make sure things work, and then you can get the private sectors involved. So I differ with that policy. Even though everybody praising what a good thing, but I don't think that's how it works. This is Joseph Blake. Thank you very much.
Many thanks. Let me take this last caller quickly. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, good morning, sir. You are the last caller for now.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Wilson. Once again, I'm constrained to call. I think Ministry of Education needs to be serious because we are discussing about public information. Are you kidding me? We are talking about 2018, and now they are telling us that public information, they are the cause of public getting the relevant information and the relevant down.
Okay.
I think they need to be serious on a daily basis to update the public.
Right.
So thank you.
Many thanks, Minister. Well, let's go back to our studio guests to respond and to some of these concerns and wrap it up with him quickly.
I will come to the Minister of Information. I want to thank the last caller. The gentleman that called and said to privatize many of these sectors means so and so. But in every major functioning country, those things are privatized. Petroleum refinery, it's clearly not a government function in any OECD country. It's a private sector arrangement. Water and sewer, these are reasons why they keep failing. So for 176 years, we never ran it properly. So that's why we want to give it to a private sector to run. So by giving it to a private sector to run, it doesn't mean you can't run government. It clearly means that you enabling the private sector. So let's go back. When the Taylor government decided to give telecom to the private sector, what happened? Telecom has since been successful. Is now a private sector arrangement. It's working, and today everybody has telephone. If we're still running it the same old way, we will put 30 million in. Somebody will come and say, they want to working, then we'll put another money in. And I think we need to rise up to the new Liberia that we want versus the old Liberia. What suggestions have you advanced? So here's the thing, Bossman. Those meetings was called once, as far as I know. One was called Bella Casa, if you guys remember, where we went, and it was just an open meeting. It's not a working meeting where you say, come with, presentation where we can present. The president sits down with his kitchen cabinet, and we have not had such an engagement. At no time have this government have such an engagement with the opposition where it calls us and say, let's sit down and let's discuss it. You want to call us, not in group. You want to call probably 4 or 5 of us or one of us at a time, sit down, the president with his kitchen cabinet, the finance minister, whoever else, we do a presentation, we give them the document. If they need additional workings, they help us. So that kind of engagement helps the country. The man said the data on education is false, and somebody called and said, no, that's their own data that was published, but they have to be serious. But again, I'm even hesitant to go to the Ministry of Education for document, because why? The Minister of Education, Ansu Soni, sat on radio and said, out of the 49,000 persons that took government exam, at least 46, at least one subject was passed by 46,000 persons. What kind of English is that? Tell us how many persons pass or fail. To pass the government exam, you must pass at least 6 subjects, including math and English. Up to now, Ansu Soni have not come to the airway to clarify that. But even at that, how can you run the Ministry of 1940? SIMEON FREEMAN should get everybody should get go to Ministry of Education, act like we come there for something serious, upload the data publicly. But that's the kind of laziness. And the gentleman called on the air to expose himself. You see why we don't need George? We are in power because our president of Haida, man, he doesn't even belong over there.
You file Marxism?
Lawmakers, listen. The lawmakers in this country are not significantly the problem, because let's take it. What's the current composition of CDC partisans at the legislature? Or what was the current composition? What was the composition of Unity Party partisans at the legislature? They were quite limited. But what happened? the number of people in your party at the legislature does not stop the passage of budgets or laws. That's why you have lobbying. You engage with your legislators and laws will be passed. So it depends on what way the government wants to go. Look at the reality. When George Weah gave his EPS $10 million and gave to the judiciary, 17 million, they pass it. When he gave to fire service 1.2 million, they still pass it. So they are not the problem. Refusal to create job in Liberia. I don't understand what this man is thinking. Do you know when I say 25,000 bottles per hour, you know how much $1 million was spent? Have you gone to the Vase factory to see the physical expansion of the factory? When you talk about Freeman City, where we bought 150 acres of land, including the rock quarry or whatever, do you know what it costs? I don't understand. The 7-story DSTV building, the millions of dollars being pumped into movie production. Does he understand these things? People just sit down and talk. As a businessman, I have to diversify. Ghana is the 10th largest economy. Kenya is the 6th largest economy. South Africa is the 3rd. I have to go into markets that are functional, that work, that give me things and get things done. So I'm not going to tell myself. So if that is the myopic way in which you're going to look at things, because a Liberian businessman is invested elsewhere, oh, so you can't give me the country, then clearly you're not thinking that the rest of the people are thinking, because people are calling the very excited. And trust me, of all of the people that want to be president, I'm the only one creating job. I'm the only one that have created job. I'm the only one that have proven that I have the expertise to create job. Nobody deserves this country. Mr. SORBOR George agree. I think you need to say to everybody here that I'm the guy for this country. Thank you so much.
Many thanks, Senior Freeman. Senior Freeman is a Liberian politician. He's vying for the presidency. He's been our guest since 8 o'clock this morning. Many thanks, and thanks for taking time off a busy schedule to appear on the show today, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. George. It's been a wonderful 2 hours. I want to say thanks to all of the callers. Also, thanks to the ERBC family. And I think today you've been able to challenge the myth, September 18th, that you're not going to open your lines for external politicians. I hope we can do this again. I hope I can come again. And I hope you can let me use the forum, pay for the airtime. I have paid for it, so it's not going to be free. But I hope you can also call me some other free time. Let's have some discussions. Thank you so much.
We'll do that. Well, Trajan.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks a lot of the stations that relayed. I think they said my station, Prime, OKFM.
Yeah, they all relayed.
Yeah, all of the stations that relayed. Want to say thank you.
FM
I think we're live on Spoon TV as well.
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's just I'll go home and there's a presentation of the Super Money Show. Join us tomorrow. I'm sure tomorrow I'll have another presidential candidate. You know, that's the season now. You'll be here tomorrow from 9 to 10 o'clock. Until then, thanks to my Indie Friday cable in losses and hardworking producer, man Melvin Stewart. Damawa was behind the camera. Until then, there's no sacrifice.